Well, it is Testimony Tuesday, and I wanted to share how I came to know the Lord. I grew up going to churches, typically grew up in the Lutheran church, but sharing the gospel was not something that was regularly done. I don't ever remember them asking if anyone wanted to accept Jesus into their heart as their Lord and Savior. My older sister had conversations with me about the Lord and said, well, the biggest compliment you can give God is to sit and talk to him just as if he's right next to you. So I tried that, and I still wavered in my faith. And when I really contemplated the existence of God was more often than not when I would find myself walking home after finding myself in the ditch. It seemed I would be driving along just fine on our 8-mile trek from Dutton, Montana to the farm. And needless to say, I would end up in the ditch and be walking home. And that is when I would look up at the sky and say, God, are you there? Are you real? Do you exist? Do you see me? And I started to make the connection that the only time I was really talking to God is when I was walking home. So I decided, after many fun jokes made in my direction, like, Elaine, when are you going to write your book, 101 Ways to Go in the Ditch? I started praying as soon as I got in the car. I'd put my seatbelt on. It's like, okay, Lord, I'm driving. I know you're there. Help me not to go in the ditch today. And it seemed to be very effective. When I went to college, I went into a depression. I went 7 hours away from home. I very purposely wanted to go someplace where no one would know me. And all I wanted to do was sleep. I felt too good to sleep, so I would eat cookies and bags of potato chips to make myself feel sick, and then I would go to bed. Well, after gaining 50 pounds and pretty bad skin problems, I decided that wasn't working so well for me. I had a friend who was in high school, invited me to stay at her house for the weekend, and took me to church the next day. The whole message was based on the verse Exodus 20:12, which reads, Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. About a week after that, I called home, and my stepdad, Rudy DeBrooker, answered the phone, and we had an exchange student worker on our farm through the International Agricultural Exchange Program from West Germany. And she was a girl of about 21 years old. I asked him how things were going, and all he really told me about her was that she came there against her parents' wishes. Her parents begged her, saying, if you wait one more year, we will pay for you to go on the Work Around the World program, where she could have spent 3 months in a different country for a year. And she said, no, I'm going to Montana and you can't stop me. Shortly after that, well, I guess it was before that, because I had my last conversation with my mother before this gal was on our farm. So my last conversation with my mom, she had a letter from her mother in her hand. And she's waving the letter around. And she's saying, I can't believe she would send this to me. This is all lies. My mom never really got upset or too emotional about too many things. She was a pretty happy-go-lucky person who didn't lay down a lot of laws or consequences or responsibilities in our direction. So I really didn't see much of her anger. But when it came to talking about her mother, it was a different story. I remember being a sophomore in high school, and I asked my mother, why don't you ever ground me? Why don't you ever ask me if I have homework? I feel like if I killed myself drinking and driving, you wouldn't care. And she said, I don't want you to hate me like I hate my mom. Her mom had a drinking problem, and my mother was the oldest girl out of 7 siblings. And a lot of the brunt of child rearing and house responsibilities fell on the shoulders of my mother. And she was very angry and resentful towards her mom for that. And it was obvious that she had never forgiven her mother. As she shared the letter with me, and I'm sure my grandma was remembering good times that she had had with some of her children, though my mom claims none of them were with her. I get my times a little mixed up, but anyway, as I go back to college, and with a very short time period, I had this message at the church saying, honor your father and mother and you'll be blessed with long life. And I know it wasn't coincidence that the last conversation that I had with Rudy before my mom passed was of the young girl from West Germany that was driving the fuel truck that ended up taking both of their lives, saying that she came against her parents' wishes. And the last conversation I had with my mom, that she held such anger and resentment and unforgiveness towards her mother. And attending the church service where the verse was read, honor your father and mother and you'll be blessed with long life, I felt very privileged that God would go through those circumstances to love me enough to be a part of my life and to let me know that He is real. He's there. He sees me. He cares about me. When other people in my life didn't provide the discipline or the guidance that I so desperately wanted and was crying out for in many different ways. I think of one incident where Coach Weisar was coaching the volleyball team, and there was a party in Power, the Fireman's Ball, and he said, well, I'm going to be going to the Fireman's Ball this weekend, so if there's any place else you want to go to party, I suggest it not be there. But no, that's where I went. And someone there did report me having a drink. And I was asked to go speak to Sam Hunt, who was the athletic director at the time at the high school. And Sam led me into the question, did you have a drink of someone else's drink, or did you have your own drink? And I said, I had my own drink. And he said, well, how did you get it? Well, I went up to the bar and bought it. He goes, well, I'm afraid we're going to have to let you off the volleyball team. But that was my way to cry for help. I wanted someone in my life to love me enough to tell me no. And I'm thankful that God has guided me, protected me, allowed me to share and to be where I am today. So thank you for listening, and we'll share more at another Testimony Tuesday.